futuro. Bien, saludamos a Jay Pelosky desde TPW Advisory. Jay, thank you so much, as always, for having us a few minutes. Jay, sorry, I can't hear you. Maybe your microphone is off.
Sorry about that.
Yes, perfect now.
I'm here.
Perfect. Now I hear you and I see you. Jay, really important, one of these last questions to Jerome Powell. He's just been asked if he intends to increase the unemployment rate in the US. He has maintained that the Fed's goal is to ensure financial stability and cool the economy off by raising interest rates. How did you see Powell in this answer?
Well, he was being pressed by the senator, obviously, to kind of confirm that unemployment was going to have to go dramatically higher, which he was obviously not wanting to do. And because keep in mind, the Fed has a dual mandate, right? Price stability and full employment. So there's a dual mandate there. And, you know, from my view, I think this is a lot of theater, performance theater, primarily by the Congress. These are all political talking points as opposed to really understanding what's likely to happen. And so it's natural that the market is going to get a little spooked. And so you have a situation where there are very few buyers and, you know, some sellers, and so market, you know, day-to-day reaction is typically a little weaker in this environment.
Did you see the first market reaction when we knew the first words from this Jerome Powell speech?
Well, it's kind of like being in an airplane, right? And you hear the pilot say, well, you know, we're coming up on some bumpy air and we're going to put on the fasten seatbelt signs. So everybody gets, you know, nervous and ready for the bumpy air. And Powell even, I think, used the term, you know, potentially a bumpy ride to get to 2% inflation. And as I say, that's, you know, that's the market environment you're in. I mean, to me, this is a better day to be a buyer of risk assets than a seller because I think the market, the bond market, equity market have both gone a long way towards pricing in a Fed. The market is now ahead of the Fed as opposed to being behind the Fed, as it has been really for months and months and months. And what I mean by that is the dot plot by the Fed suggests a terminal rate of the Fed funds rate at 5.1%. The market is now pricing in a terminal rate of 5.5%. The other point I would simply make is that we're going to have significant big numbers fall out of the year-over-year inflation calculation in the next month or two. Because remember, a year ago was the Russian invasion and the spike in energy and food prices. Those are going to drop out of the year-over-year survey. So our expectation is that by the end of Q1, year-over-year inflation is going to be under 5%, and the Fed funds rate will be at or above the inflation rate, suggesting again that the market has gone quite a long way to pricing in an eventual Fed pause. And the last thing I'd say is that the market has also completely taken out expectations of Fed rate cuts in 2023, something we never expected, but if there was priced in the market rate cuts, that has now been also repriced out of the market.
As you said, market is pricing 5.5% the terminal rate, and today, in this moment, Fed swaps are pointing to 5.6% for September. So that's interesting, quite interesting. Jay, the market is beginning to price in the possibility that the Federal Reserve will raise rates by 50 basis points in these 2 next weeks, the 22 of March. Do you see this possible? Because we talked about 25 basis points like in the previous meeting, but now do you think 50, does it make sense?
Well, I do see your point. The market has moved. I think it's now kind of pricing in a toss-up, almost 50% odds either way, which is significantly higher than even a week or two ago. But let's remember, there's a bunch of data points that will come out before the Fed meets, including the jobs number this week, including February inflation. So our expectation continues to be a 25 basis point hike for this coming meeting and another meeting in May. And then we think there's reasonable chance that the Fed by then, if what we just discussed plays out, that the Fed goes on hold. We expect a kind of long-term hold by the Fed once it gets to around 5.25% to 5.5%. There's a lot of things unfolding in the economy that I think are going to give the Fed reason to think its rate tightening that occurred since last year will be having an effect. And as was pointed out, there is no wage price spiral. Wages are under control. Inflation expectations, whether by the market or by survey, consumer survey, well anchored. So there's really no risk that the Fed is going to allow inflation to get out of hand. And I do think that there is a move towards recognizing that perhaps a 3% inflation target is better for the economy overall than a 2% inflation target. And that is kind of where I think the debate and discussion is going to go as we move through the rest of this year and into 2024.
Jay Pelosky, as always, thank you so much. A pleasure. Thank you for this analysis.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Bien, pues ya estaban escuchando a Jay